Okay, and we should be live. Just waiting for this to kick on over on YouTube.
Hello, YouTube.
All right, looks
We
like
meet
we're
again.
good. All right, welcome everybody to the Full Stack Chat podcast. My name is Brian Morrison. I am a senior developer educator for a company called Clerk, a user management authentication platform that is designed to get auth added to your applications as quickly as possible. Also, full stack tinkerer. I love building my own little fun little projects on the side, and I am super excited to have Thomas Frank joining us, who is a very special guest here. For those of you who don't know, Thomas is a productivity YouTuber and Notion educator, co-founder of Flylighter, which is a tool to quick capture things into Notion, Notion is the main thing that I actually know Thomas for. We might have a fun little story behind that if we get into it. But he's also the co-founder of Nebula, which is the world's largest creator-owned streaming service. So with that, Thomas, I'd love to pass the mic over to you, give the audience a quick intro to yourself, and kind of tell your backstory and how you got to where what you're doing today.
Sure, yeah. So today, the main thing that I do is run a channel called Thomas Frank Explains, which teaches people Notion. I would not say that I intended to become a full-time Notion educator. This was a side project that started in 2020 during COVID because for some reason I wanted a side project that was educating people on software. But it turned into a full-time job. So we make tutorials on anything and everything Notion. Perhaps we'll expand to other no-code tools in the future on that channel. We also do templates that we sell and have a lot of free ones as well. And then we've got an upcoming course. So pretty much Notion education and consulting and tool building is the main gig these days. But historically, I've always been a YouTuber, at least for the past 10 years or so. And most of that time was spent on my main channel, just called Thomas Frank, where I initially taught students how to be better at school. And then as I got older, kind of shifted my focus into general productivity and life skills. I've just sort of had this sort of meandering path into more and more specific and technical work as the years have gone on. And then right now, my co-founder Eli and I are working on a tool called Flylighter, which we started building because there wasn't really a really good Notion web clipper out there when we started this process. We wanted to make what I wanted, at least as a researcher and content creator. And what we are now trying to build is just the ultimate quick capture and web clipper tool for any destination, focusing right now on Notion, but adding HTTP and Zapier and Obsidian and whatever else fits our customers' use cases in the future.
Yeah, that's exciting. I've been not to the degree that you have probably been involved in kind of that productivity space, just kind of more as like a consumer for a long time. And I
Mhm.
built my own fair share of quick capture tools over the years, some ranging from using things like Zapier to like custom building my own backend services to like quickly capture things and migrate them over. So it's
Mhm.
definitely a space that's there. Now, that's where I know you from. So when I was learning Notion many years ago, I stumbled upon your YouTube channel and kind of started consuming a bunch of content at a time just to learn some of the more advanced concepts and whatnot around Notion. So it was extremely surprising to me to run into you and meet you kind of accidentally in person at a developer event hosted by Sanity.
Yeah.
I think mainly because of our mutual friend Aaron Francis. You were there with him, and I was
Mhm.
there to kind of meet him. So it was interesting us just kind of running into each other at the moment.
Well,
So,
I was also there to meet him, to be fair.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was there for a Notion event, actually. So Notion was hosting their own conference at the same time. I had just popped into a dinner for the speakers, and I looked, I think it was like looking I was stalking Aaron on Twitter, and he's like, "Hey, I'm at this event," and I realized it's literally a block away from the dinner, and it's right next to the Notion office. So I'm like, "Can I just come over and say hi?" And he's like, "Yeah." So, yeah, I met Aaron that same day as well.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Small world.
Mhm.
But he's a great guy. I've worked with him for a couple of years at a previous role. He's just such a pillar of light in kind of the general. Not, I was going to say the tech community, but it seems like it's kind of spanning out to more than just the tech community.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
think
always
so too.
it's always great to hear nice stories about him. But yeah, that completely took me by surprise that you were there. Um, so how did you kind of get involved into some of the developer scene? I mean, as we've kind of covered, as you said yourself, you've kind of more traditionally been in that no code productivity space of which Notion is.
Mhm.
Um, but now you're kind of getting into the space of building and launching applications.
Yeah. So this all started because I was really frustrated whenever I drive somewhere and I'd get an idea for a video or something. All I could do was record my voice into the voice memos app on iPhone. And then several years ago, this tool came out, and I'm totally brain farting on what it's called right now, but it would basically transcribe your voice into text. and I'm sure the name of it will come to me. And there's probably somebody watching YouTube right now knowing what this name is. But the problem with it is all of your transcripts were stuck in the app. And I'm like, at the time, I took my notes in Evernote. Now I take my notes in Notion. I want whatever I say in text to be in my note taking app. Uh, so I didn't know how to code at the time. I had done like some HTML and CSS in college and high school, but I really didn't know how to properly program at all. So I clutched together a bunch of like Zapier, Dropbox, all this kind of stuff, just like into a kludge of no code tools that would somehow, some way get my transcripts into Notion. And I think all said and done, it was like $40 a month of subscriptions and barely worked. It did technically work, but I'm like, okay, this is working for me. Can I make a YouTube tutorial on this? And with a straight face, tell my audience, yeah, it's going to cost you 40 bucks a month to clutch together these tools. Like, no, that sounds awful. So I kind of built it for myself, shelved it for a while. And then I was in line for coffee while on the way to my honeymoon in Hawaii with my wife. And I came across a blog post from somebody who works at a company called DeepGram. So DeepGram, if you haven't heard, is a company that basically provides an API for this exact thing, speech to text. I think they also now do some text to speech, but mostly it was ASR, automatic speech recognition workflows. And they, or the developer that wrote the blog post, had figured out how to automatically transcribe and summarize podcast episodes. And they had all these code snippets, and they were like, we're using this platform called Pipedream. It's kind of like Zapier, but you can write your own code. They kind of handle all the infrastructure stuff for you. You get to write your own like business logic. And I'm scrolling through this, sipping my coffee, going, I don't understand a lick of anything on this page. It's like Python code. I don't get what's going on here. But you know what? He just did what I wanted to do. And it seems like he's doing it with this API that they have, which is super cheap, and with Pipedream, which is free. And that sounds a lot better to me than 40 bucks. So, because my wife is amazing and very much like me, we spent about half of our honeymoon going on adventures and cliff diving and all that kind of stuff. And then the other half was like at a pool. She's reading a book or writing, and I'm learning JavaScript on my iPad. And I'm like, look, let me make it vacationy. I'm gonna stand in the pool at the edge. I'll have like a beer, and I'm gonna go through the free code camp tutorial on JavaScript, which is a fantastic way to learn to code, by the way. So I go through their like maybe first two full modules of that free thing, and I'm like, I think I'm good, and just start hacking away on it. Like the way I learn is very just let me grab everything that I can from any resource I can. So I'm binging YouTube talks. I'm watching people like Theo on YouTube. I'm going through these courses, and of course, like ChatGPT was big at the time, so I'm trying to see how much I can use that to learn. Um, just like clutch together enough knowledge to get this working pipe dream workflow going where I could upload an audio file to Dropbox and then the code I wrote would kick it off, do the summarization, do the transcription, send it all to Notion. And that was my first big coding project. I made a video about it on Thomas Frank Explains, which I initially was going to make very Notion specific. And then one of the people at Nebula actually gave me the advice to turn it into more of like a general purpose video, and it hit like 1,000,000 views. So I was like, "Oh my gosh, people actually care about this, and I care about it, and I'm gonna spend, like, the next 3 months of my life making it even better." So most of my coding experience has come in the form of just trying to build this workflow that allows me to speak and get everything I said in text in Notion. I've done a few things here and there. I've built, like, a wrapper class for the Notion API and some other projects, but that was really my genesis and the thing that I'm still most proud of.
That's great. Yeah, there takes a certain amount of passion for somebody to just kind of like jump in and start kind of grinding away at building something that's fully functional. And would you say that having a kind of real world goal that you had as your north star for learning has made that experience of learning programming so much easier?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember watching a video many years ago, and I can't remember the guy who made it, but he was like, "Here's how you learn to code," and it's just like a list of topics. And he's like, "But this isn't how you learn to code because learn to code is like learn to use a hammer. And if you don't care to build a house or build furniture, like why the heck do you want to learn to use a hammer? And are you going to feel that motivated once it gets tough?" Same thing with coding. I went through those first two modules of the free code camp JavaScript class, and they were useful for sure, but by the time I got through the first 2 modules, I'm like, "I could continue on with this, but there's stuff I wanna build. I think I'm just gonna go try to build it." And I know that that probably has left gaps in my fundamental knowledge, but that was what drove me to be coding for 12 hours a day and be like trawling through documentation on obscure Node.js classes and functions that I didn't barely understood. But you got to like have something you want to build if you're going to sit at the computer for 12 hours a day and actually code.
Yeah, that's one of my tips that I give to new developers who are interested in getting into the space. Is like, yeah, you can follow as many tutorials as you want and get into. They eventually call it what you get into is tutorial hell. You just
Yeah.
sit there and keep watching things and learning things, but you're not actually applying it. But the second you can find a real world project that you could start building and hacking away at, that's where that real knowledge unlock happens.
Can
Um,
you actually sit through tutorials?
Not anymore. I used to be able to, but like
Okay.
these days, I've been in the tech space for over 15 years now. It's actually coming up on not quite 20 years. I'd be pushing it if I say that, but
Mhm.
I've been around for a while. So early on, yes, I could sit through and watch tutorials and whatnot. But these days, if I'm not sitting there and actually trying to apply the knowledge, it just goes in and one ear out the other.
Mhm.
And then also if I am watching a tutorial, typically I'm skipping around just to find the thing that I'm really looking for to get out of
Yep.
it. Yeah, so it's changed over time, and I suspect with most people who when they start getting more advanced in whatever space they are, it also changes as well.
Yeah. It feels so silly to me because I make tutorials for a living, but I've never been able to sit through tutorials. I don't think I've ever done a coding tutorial project. Like the free code camp thing feels different because it's one screen, very simple, like, hey, implement a loop or fix this bug. But I'll bookmark all these tutorials on YouTube. It's like, oh, we're gonna build a to-do application. I'm like, that sounds cool. And then I can't get myself to go through the whole thing. But
Yeah,
I can sit down for 12 hours and hack away on an idea I have.
yeah, we're going on a bit of a tangent here. That's completely unrelated to the main topic here, but I work, as mentioned in the intro, I work for Clerk and I'm in the marketing department technically. And we do work with a lot of YouTube partners in order to kind of like suggest using Clerk within it. And those really long tutorials, although I myself could never sit through them. I mean, we've sponsored tutorials that are over 24 hours long in a
Mhm.
single video. It's completely mind-blowing that somebody would sit through that, but it works. It and people
Mhm.
love it. And it's just interesting how different people learn in different ways.
Yep. Everyone's got a different learning style. Some of us are just like, let me sample the snack bar. And other people are like, no, I want you to give me a specific steak and I will eat the entire thing.
Right. Right. Now, pivoting a little bit farther. So I did a little digging before our show. You've got one channel on YouTube, over 3 million subs. You've
Mhm.
got another channel, over 270,000, I think I saw this morning. You've
I
got
think so.
Nebula.tv, which is a streaming service, it seems like.
Mhm.
You have a website filled with newsletters and blog articles and podcasts and just so many things. And now you're taking all of that knowledge and experience you've built up over the last I don't know, 15 or so years, I would say, I think is where I saw as well, and applying it towards Flylighter, which is it's a product, right? It's a
Mhm.
SaaS product. I think I'll generalize it as that you're now launching. You're coming at building a product from a completely different angle than most developers, I think, are. So developers get very hard caught into the mindset of like, what stack am I going to use? What's the framework? What's the language? What services am I going to use? Whereas you're taking kind of more of a business first approach, I imagine. So how has your background in growing these online businesses kind of influenced the way that you're approaching Flylighter and launching it?
It's interesting that you ask that. Uh, I wish I could just like bestow you with this business guru knowledge right now. But the truth is, despite everything I've done, which looks to be, from the outside, what like your typical marketing bro would do, at heart, I'm a tinkerer, and I really don't do good work unless I'm really interested in it. So when you said, like, I'm probably ignoring the stack and all that kind of stuff, like, I'm not. I'm actually very interested in the stack. Um, Whenever there's a new technology that comes out, I'm like, Eli, should we use this or should we not use this? And I have to like force myself to go, the stack doesn't matter. What matters is distribution, build a good product, get feedback from customers, and iterate on that kind of stuff. But it's definitely not my natural inclination. My natural inclination is like, the new library came out. Should we like drop everything and try to slot this in instead? Um, so really, like, I think that kind of punctuates my entire career. Everything that I've done has been driven by some sort of bug in my brain that just like compels me to go figure it out. So YouTube entirely started because I was doing blogs and podcasts back in like 2013, and I found myself watching more YouTube videos than like reading blogs or listening to podcasts. And for the most part, it was not even like business or productivity content. By that point, I was done with college. I wasn't like doing a whole lot of reading of productivity stuff. I was watching people talk about video games. But I was fascinated with like the editing and the animations. I was also watching the Crash Course channel, which is like the best educational channel on YouTube. It's basically School, the channel. John and Hank Green made it. They've got amazing animations and all this kind of stuff. So I'm sitting there watching all this stuff and I'm like, I want to do that. So let me just apply that to the business I already have going, which is teaching students how to be more effective in school. But I'm going to make it fun and I'm going to make it feel like proper YouTube videos. And that was my career for like 8 years, just making better and better videos, kind of following whatever I was interested in at the time, whether it was like cinematography or After Effects animation. Um, and eventually that interest wheel spun around to software development. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now.
Interesting. Okay. That's fair. I think that's going to be a little bit of a breath of fresh air for
Mhm.
people out there who are just like you. I'm kind of the same way, right? Like there's a new thing that comes out and I just get excited to get my hands on it and play with it. I'll fully well knowing that it's probably a distraction, wasting my time from what my ultimate end goal is.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so thanks for sharing that. Now, in your journey of learning how to code, um, when remind me how long was that? How long ago was that you kind of started really diving into this on your honeymoon?
That was
Apparently,
the summer I got married, so summer of 2022. Though I probably should count the 3 months before that when I was documenting the Notion formula language. Notion had not done documentation for their formulas language, and I wanted to make a video on it. And then I'm like, let me make a little cheat sheet, which turned into full technical documentation for the entire language.
wow.
So
Okay,
in doing that, I kind of like tripped and fell and taught myself a lot of what ended up being pretty relevant to programming in the like beforehand, because formulas still have arguments, they still have order of operations and operator precedence and all that kind of stuff. So 3 months there, and then summer of 2022 is when I like properly started JavaScript.
awesome. So since then, I would say specifically in the last year, we have all these AI tools that
Hmm.
feel like they're coming for the job of the developers, and you see the companies who are building them put out there saying that no one should learn how to code now. It's a dead career. How do you feel about that? Being someone who has kind of just more recently learned how to write code yourself.
I will preface this by saying I am not Nostradamus. I have
Okay.
not built yet a successful software company, nor sold one, nor any of that. So what I can say is learning to code was really fun, even though it was really hard and really frustrating sometimes. It has also taught me a lot about problem solving. It has reinforced the knowledge I already have that when you expose yourself to new tools and you work with those tools, your problem solving space expands. Because if you literally don't know a solution for a piece of a problem exists, then you won't, in many cases, understand how to solve that problem in any case whatsoever. So there are some philosophical reasons why I think that learning to code is still quite useful. Um, we could have some debate around whether it's maybe as useful or similar to say go learn no code tools instead. That I'm not sure about. I do know the tools keep getting better. What I can say is at this point in time, the tools we have for like vibe coding or AI assisted development are, in my experience, not good enough for higher level software development. My experience here, I just had this in February. I'm trying to make this video on voice typing because I have repetitive stress injuries in my hands. So if I type too much, they will start to hurt, and I have to type a lot. So on Mac, there's this wonderful program called Mac Whisper, which allows me to hit a little key on my keyboard and I can talk, and the Whisper model will turn it into text, and it's basically perfect. I can do like 80% of my typing with it. So I want to make a video about it, but Windows literally doesn't have something anywhere near as good. I searched high and low for this because a friend of mine literally broke their shoulder and they're like, I work on Windows and I heard you do voice typing, Tom. Is there something on Windows? And we're like looking for a thing. We find this one program that looks promising and they try to install it and there's like a Trojan warning. So I'm not even going to name what that product is. Uh, but I found this open source project on GitHub it's like a Python project. It had no installer. You had to like run it in the terminal and it was also super out of date and half broken. And the developer, like, I love what they did, but they build it with AI, so I don't know how much they understand their own code base. But
Mm.
I'm like, well, let me continue this tradition, I'm going to give vibe coding a try. So I paid for a Cursor subscription, and I'm like, hey, Cursor, I want to upgrade this open source project. Let's try to fix it. Let's upgrade the dependencies. And I spent, I think, 9 days, mostly like 12-hour days, screen recording a lot of it, just doing like intense vibe coding. And where I got was actually quite impressive. I think I took the project from like half broken but good foundation to what's probably the best voice typing app on Windows that isn't Dragon Dictation, which costs $700 and I assume is better. Um, it still does require you to like run it from the terminal and everything, but I added a whole bunch of stuff to it that I think is really cool. But then I'm like, okay, Cursor, let's try to make it Mac OS compatible, which seems to me like it should be theoretically easy to do. It's like there are open source Python libraries for clipboard management on Mac OS and Windows. Same for keyboard, like virtualization, stuff like that. Same for audio device handling. Like all the low level hardware is taken care of by the Python ecosystem. All I have to do is work with Cursor to vibe it into existence. And I couldn't do it because once you get to this level of development where you want to make an app cross platform, you're now looking at writing lower level classes for OS specific handling. And then you have to have higher level classes to route like the higher level logic down to those lower level classes based on the user's OS. And that made the code base big enough that Cursor just couldn't understand what it needed to do anymore. And I would like to think that I gave it a pretty good college try. There are a lot of people on Twitter, I tweeted about this recently, who are just like, "You're one of those arrogant software developers who doesn't give her the patience she needs. A true vibe coder would never get stuck." So there's like this, I don't know, segment of the community that has almost like this religious reverence for vibe coding. I have yet to see them put out anything super impressive. And then there's like the other side of developers who are like, "This is all useless and absolutely like worthless and nobody should do it." I'm kind of in the middle where I'm like, I really gave it a try. And I think I developed something pretty damn cool that I couldn't have done on my own, at least not at this point in my career. I don't understand Python, but I also really did hit a wall, really gave it a lot of effort to try to climb that wall. And the conclusion I came is I've hit the point where I need to go and read the manual and learn the language. Like the model can't uh can't guide me as a helpless monkey anymore.
Yeah, can I first, before I even proceed forward, can we point out the irony of the term true vibe coder? Because I think that term has only existed for 2 months or so. I
Yeah.
think it was coined in February. So that's just that's hilarious that people are arguing with that. But you're not going to get any debate from me. I mean, I've been like I said, I've been writing code for as far as I can remember. I like to say that I learned how to code back in the days of MySpace because I wanted to make my profile look pretty.
Mhm.
But I've had the same experience. I mean, vibe coding tools are incredible for getting something off the ground, for maybe bootstrapping a project, for maybe adding little things here and there. But you still have to hold its hand really closely and can't expect too much from it. What it can do is impressive for what it can do, but you reach the wall of it pretty quickly when you try and do anything sufficiently advanced, or you have to be very specific with it.
Right.
Yeah, so it's again refreshing for the developers out there to hear that other people kind of share that same sentiment, whether they've been doing it for a long time or are relatively new. I mean, a couple years, I think, in your experience is not necessarily new anymore, but certainly newer than somebody who's been doing it for their entire career. But
Mhm.
my last question I think I have for you before we can wrap this up is if you had one piece of advice for somebody who is looking to build and launch their product with intention of generating some side revenue or maybe even replacing their full-time job. And this is an open-ended question. It could be something technical, it could be something non-technical. What's the piece of advice that you would give to that person?
Hmm. That's a very good question. Um, so any answer I'm going to give is going to be from the perspective of somebody who has a very specific hammer and sees everything as a nail with that hammer, right? So my perspective that turns me into that very specific type of hammer is that I've built this sort of media presence online, which gives me inherent distribution for any project that I want to work on. If I make a Notion template, I can email 60,000 people on my newsletter, or I can make a video about it and people will know about it. Same thing with Flylighter. Um, so from that perspective, my first inclination is to say if you want to make money with something, you need to get distribution. And we are seeing a lot of takes that I've seen recently about this sort of business model where you get distribution first and then you're able to use that distribution as you, maybe not as a brand representing a specific project, but you're able to use that distribution in order to start promoting a project that you have. Um, Again, though, I don't know if that advice is to be liberally applied everywhere because some people may hear that and go, okay, I guess I have to go and slog through the trenches of TikTok or YouTube to make a online presence before I can do what I actually want to do. What I would really say is my entire career again has been built on me kind of chasing my passions with an understanding that the passion I'm chasing does connect to some sort of viable economic engine. I have other passions like guitar, which I firmly keep as hobby because I do not want to be like a traveling gig musician, and I just don't think that would be a viable career path. But I'm very interested in coding. I'm very interested in design, and when I get those bugs in my brain, I realize there are legitimate paths forward for building a business with these interests. Let me pursue them and let me try to be strategic about them, whether that be partnering up with people or making sure I'm going to events or making content on the internet about it. So that's really the main thing is just like you have to give a shit about what you are building. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to stick it out and build something over the long run. And I'd also say, like, be patient. This stuff takes time. It took me a couple, like 2.5 years to start making any money off of blogging. And I think I got lucky with that. I think it would have actually taken longer in most circumstances. And at this point, I've been doing this since 2010. So 15 years of making stuff on the internet. Same with you, 15 years of full time development. Um, Give it time and give it energy and attention and be strategic, and I think you'll win.
Awesome. All great advice. Yeah. The patience thing, I think, especially is something lacking in our space these days. Everybody sees someone on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it these days, throwing out how much money, I started a project last month and now I'm making $10,000 MRR. And it's like, that's
Right?
either an edge case or a blatant lie. This
Yes.
stuff does take time.
There's a
Um,
lot of lies out there. But yeah, and some
yeah,
people get super lucky, which is great for them, but I wouldn't bank on that being a viable business model. Far more people have done the long, slow path, and I think they're happier for it too.
certainly. Well, Thomas, if people want to connect with you on the internet, where can they find you and what kind of resources should they check out?
Yeah, so thomasjfrank.com is my main website. It's mostly filled with my Notion resources now, but there's also an about page with all the relevant links. If you are using Notion, you can check out Flylighter, which is our web clipper, and we'll also be adding additional destinations very soon. So Obsidian and HTTP, which basically makes all destinations available through Zapier and stuff like that. Otherwise, I do still hang out on Twitter and Blue Sky, Tom Frankly on both.
Awesome. Thank you so much once again for joining me. Everything that Thomas mentioned today, I will put in the show notes in the description on YouTube, or if you're watching this on or listening to this rather on your favorite podcatcher, it'll be in the show notes. And with that, I will see everybody in the next episode of Full Stack Chat. Thank
See
you
y'all
so much
later.
for stopping by. Bye bye.